Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am very excited to see who's here. So for starters, why don't you all write in the comment box where geographically you are, where you're located. I know that we've got some people in Mexico. Yo sé que tenemos algunos amigos en Mexico. Hi, James. Hi, David. Okay, so we'll get started in about 30 seconds. Get everybody a chance to get here, and then we'll get going. David is in Columbus, Ohio. I think I knew that. Hi, Kathy. Natalia, Tia, ahí estás. Hi, Russ. All right. This is fun. Hi, Monica. Lisa's here. Ms. Mohan is here. And then, like I said, we'll get going because, what is that? I didn't know somebody could call in. Hi, Joe from Long Beach. All right, as you guys are joining, I'm actually going to go ahead and get started. And there are numerous people on here that I don't know and you don't know me. So I think I'll just tell you a little bit about myself in terms of my interest in the topic and a little bit about my background. I am a former school teacher in the California public schools. I taught there for 9 years. So really, I would say that I'm a teacher. Okay. And although I taught in the public schools for 9 years, I realized that in teaching the public schools, I was not going to be able to really make a difference in people's lives. It's like, why would somebody become a school teacher? Well, because you want to make a difference, right? And I realized I wasn't. So I was taking, gosh, I guess I was 23 at the time. I was taking different transformational trainings. I took the S training, which was the precursor to Landmark Forum and some other things. And then in 1989, I ended up in Tony Robbins' organization. I was walking on fire and doing all that. I stayed in his organization for a year on his volunteer staff. And what I learned there was that transformation could happen quickly. I did not know that. I thought it took years and all of that, but he did an exercise out of 2,000 people. I was a volunteer on the stage, and he did an exercise. I had a certain fear, and he did this NLP exercise. It took him about 4 minutes, and the fear was gone. So that made a believer, and I thought out of me, and I said, I want to learn how to do what he does. So then I went and studied NLP for a year, and I was in that organization for a year, learning the NLP and being on their volunteer staff. And then the third year of my apprenticeship, I went into Deepak Chopra's organization for a year. And that was really, really, really powerful. And at the end of that, this was 1993 by then, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own business. And so I did. I started the International Academy of Self-Knowledge, which at some point later on, you can go follow that page. Oops, I dropped something. And so that was 25 years ago. I've been doing transformational coaching all of this time. Now, at the Academy of Self-Knowledge, the curriculum is, who am I? Why am I here on this earth? And how do I break through the barriers that are preventing me from actualizing my destiny? So it's like really deep topics, right? And so on my website, it talks, there's a little tagline, and it says, what they didn't teach you in school. So it's been a lot of fun all of these years, getting to be the person that decides, this is what I think people need to know, right? And one of the things that people need to know is how to be able to be peaceful and happy and calm in life. And I want to just kind of reflect on the reason that I'm doing this Facebook Live is because some of you read the piece that I did on March 5th, when was it, March 12th? I don't know if I have ever done a long post on Facebook, but this one morning after I got off of a session, by the way, while I'm just going to focus on this and talking to you, and then later I'll check the comments and we can do questions. You know, if you have questions, just feel free to put those in at any time, and then we'll look at them later. And if I don't get to it all, I'll go back after the after I'm off, and I'll answer your questions. Okay, so so I was doing this post. I get off this session with one of my students. I actually have 2 students right now that are in China, and a lot of you read it, so I'll just recap it really quickly. So this was probably in the end of January, you know, just when the outbreak was starting in China and they were being quarantined and all of that. I remember one of the guys couldn't go out of his house for 2 weeks, which he didn't mind. He said, "Oh, I don't have to go to work," you know. He kind of enjoyed that. And then the other guy was telling me, the second guy was saying, you know, our company, now keep in mind, these guys are this guy's in Shanghai. He says, our company just lost their biggest client, and it was Pier 1 Imports. And then and then I said, in the post, I said, you know, like last week, maybe, yeah, it was last week, I was driving on the streets of Columbus, Ohio, and I go by this Pier 1 Imports, and my eyes kind of drawn to it because it had the closing banner, like a big yellow banner closing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening here in Columbus, Ohio is affecting my student in Shanghai. And then this was the week, you know, when things got sort of escalated with you know, the virus and all of that. And I said, never in a million years, when I was talking to these guys back in January, did I think that we here in our country would be going through the same thing. And in that moment, I realized, man, we are interconnected. Now, you all know that, right? I knew that intellectually, but I don't think I'd had quite the powerful experience of literally living it. I experienced the interconnectedness of us, but I experienced it in not a positive way. It was like a negative way. Oh, look, these guys are going out of business, and that's impacting them. Oh, look, we're interconnected. Oh, these guys have a virus, so now we have it. And we were interconnected in that way. So I realized, you know, we can be interconnected, all right, but are we going to be interconnected for the positive or for the negative? And so I got a lot of feedback from people that were reading it, and I realized, you know, there are a lot of us that feel that interconnection in a positive way. And there's some of the negativity that's going on. It's like, what can we do about it, right? How can we make a difference? And I said, well, for starters, we can control our own emotions. We can't stop what's going to happen. This virus is going to do what it's going to do, right? But how we respond to it is up to us. We don't need to be fearful about it if we know how to not be fearful. And that's why I also wanted to do this Facebook Live, to give you guys and share a tool with you in the form of an ebook called The Positive Purpose of Negative Emotions. And you might have seen a post that I did by Dr. Bruce Lipton, maybe the day before, or I don't know when I did it. But anyway, he was talking about fear and the stress level and what it does to our immune system. I'm just going to read it. It's up on, it was on my post. And this is actually in the words of Dr. Bruce Lipton. He says, as presented in The Biology of Belief, and I love that book. It's one of my favorite books. There's a lot of science in it that backs up what he's saying. So he says, as presented in The Biology of Belief, stress is responsible for up to 90% of illness, including heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. When an individual is in stress, the release of stress hormones, cortisol, shuts down the immune system to conserve the body's energy for running away from the perceived stressor, that the proverbial saber-toothed tiger, right? And then I said, well, yeah, we've got a lot of that stress going on in the name of fear. And so since fear is optional, it's only optional if you know how to make it optional. So we're going to talk about the negative emotions, and fear is definitely a negative emotion. So let's talk about those, okay? So after this, after I finish here, I'm going to put a link up, and it's a link to this book. It's my ebook. It's only 15 pages long, so you can read it pretty quickly. It's called The Positive Purpose of Negative Emotions. And on that page where you go to download the book, you will see a little video. It's a 5-minute video that talks about the positive purpose of negative emotions. And briefly, it talks about 3 things. It's like 3 powerful insights about the positive purpose of negative emotions. And the first insight is that negative emotions aren't bad. And then the book explains why. So I'm not going to explain the whole thing because I don't want to keep you, and that's what you have the book for, right? Okay, so you're going to find out that negative emotions aren't bad. And then you'll find out that they're just messengers. They're just messengers to let you know something's wrong. They are you could say the emotional equivalent of physical pain. Then the second thing that you find out is that our negative thoughts are actually causing the negative emotions. And the third thing is that, oh, by the way, we're not aware of most of our thoughts. So if our negative thoughts are causing our negative emotions, but we're not aware of most of our thoughts, how are we going to fix that, right? So that's what this book is going to explain. It's really pretty simple. At the end, also there'll be a masterclass that you can watch as well. That'll be with this link. And in that masterclass, when you get to the end of it, you'll be able to sign up for a 15-minute session with one of the coaches from the academy. So you can ask questions about anything, one-on-one questions about this or anything that's going on with you. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So in this ebook, there's a flow chart, and it helps you distinguish, is my negative emotion appropriate? Like, yeah, I should feel that way, right? There's a reason to feel that way. Or is it inappropriate? No, there's no reason. I'm just thinking the wrong things, and I need to stop thinking them. Okay, and then of course you need tools. You need a tool to stop thinking something when you're thinking it. You know how sometimes you're aware you're thinking it, but you're still thinking it. It doesn't change that. But this flow chart that you'll get in the ebook helps you go through that, and it works about 90% of the time. But there are times when the emotion is too intense that the negative emotions don't disappear at the bottom of the flow chart where it says negative emotion disappears. It doesn't disappear. So then as you're going through this link that I'm going to put up, it says, here's a video on what to do if the negative emotion doesn't disappear at the end of the flow chart. Okay, so then it explains a little bit about that. And then there's a 45-minute masterclass. And that goes into a lot of detail about why your negative emotion might not clear just using your cognitive purposes. Remember that Einstein said, you can't solve the problem with the same level of mind that created the problem. So the problem was created in the conscious mind, but the good news is there are higher minds than our conscious mind, and that is universal mind, the mind of God, infinite intelligence, whatever your word is for that, right? And so in this 45-minute masterclass, it explains, well, how do we recognize these negative emotions? How do we utilize the power of God to be able to work with this negative emotion? Because everything can't be solved. As you all know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Everything can't be solved with just us thinking about it and just us understanding. There is time for divine intervention where we need really the perspective, the higher viewpoint of a higher mind talking to us. So when we talk to ourselves, we're like, we might go in loops. But when we hear the voice of God or your higher power, whatever word you want to say, that's really going to make a difference. And so that's what that explains. And then at the end of that, like I was saying, you have the opportunity to be able to sign up for a free session with one of our coaches and ask questions. On this masterclass, there's meditations, you're closing your eyes, you may have questions, or you might just want to share what happened. There's a little process that goes through and has you do some visualization. You might want to, share that and how that went, or what worked and what didn't work or whatever. So I'm going to put up the link here in a minute. And then, just in case I don't always trust that it's going to work, I'll repost this on my, I'll put it on my timeline, and I'll put that link to the book on my timeline. And once you get on that link for the book, then it takes you to the videos, and you just kind of follow along, okay? So I'm going to take a look here quickly to see what kind of questions we might have. Wow, okay. We got a lot of highs. Hi, Lisa. Okay, I won't take too much. Okay, I think that what we're best served by is for you to do that reading, watch your videos, and then when you have your questions, get those answered one-on-one. Okay, so let me put this link up right now. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's see what we got there. Yep, there it is. So you all can go ahead and click on that, download it, and like I said, if for some reason it's not working or whatever, I'll check it when I'm offline, and then I'm going to post it up on my timeline. So, thank you so much for coming, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the subject matter of what's going on and what we can do about it. Okay, bye for now.